I will be recording on OBS.
All right, let me know when you're good.
Hang on, let me get my awkwards out.
Awkward's out. Awkward's out.
Awkwards out. Awkwards out. I got my awkwards out. I got a fidget. Oh my god, I got a fidget toy in my hand.
Sid
I'm
has
throwing
smacked themselves in the face already.
with plastic. It's fine. Because there's just shit all over my desk. Okay. He's ready.
All right.
Let's go.
Hello and welcome to Chronically Distracted. I'm your host, Katie.
And I'm your host, Sid.
We are two long-term friends who have bonded over intellectual rabbit holes, animal husbandry, and grandma crafting for years.
And now we're here to talk your ears about it all. I said that wrong.
You're fine.
I'm doing great.
Every week. You want to redo it?
Yeah.
Okay.
It just started. We are too long.
We are two long-term friends who have bonded over intellectual rabbit holes, animal husbandry, and grandma crafting for years.
And now we're here to talk your ears off about all of it.
Every week-ish, we delve into the hobby of collecting hobbies.
Today we are cutting deep and diving into our mutual obsession with horses.
But before we discuss everything equine, how are you this dang week?
I'm feeling pretty good. I just got back from vacation. I've got like my
Hell yeah,
Hawaiian
vacay.
Hawaiian style shirt on. Yeah, we went to the beach. It stormed almost the entire time, on and off.
As it do.
But I didn't mind that much because I took that time to have some guilt-free cozy gaming. I started playing Ooblets, which I gotta say, 10 out of 10. It's like the love child of Animal Crossing and Pokemon.
Don't tell
But
me
instead of battling, you gotta buy it. Instead of battling, you do
that.
dance
How
battles.
expensive is it? Dance battles?
Dance battles. The Ooblets live to dance. And you have to do dance battles in order, and then when you do a dance battle with an Ooblet, you don't capture the Ooblet itself. It farts out a little seed, and you plant the seed in your garden, and then it grows a new Ooblet. It's so
Sounds
wholesome.
absolutely ridiculous.
And the townies are hilarious. Like everything they say, it's so good. I put in over 20 hours on my vacation on Ooblets, and I have no regrets whatsoever.
What platform is it on?
I have it on PC. I just bought it on Steam.
Ho. Are you going to stream it?
Probably not. It's
Okay.
one of those games where like I don't want to be sitting at my computer like this.
Yeah.
I want to be like cuddled up. It is a truly cozy game where like you want to be cuddled up in your bed or on your couch. So I have it downloaded on my laptop so that I can cozy up. And yeah, it's probably not something I'll stream just because.
Ooblets. I'm putting this in the show notes so that I don't forget.
Yeah, no, I highly recommend Ooblets. It's very relaxing. It's just silly and goofy and wholesome and yeah, just a great cozy game.
Sweet.
I think they have it on the Switch too. I think they do. I'm just not.
If it's like a handheld cozy game, I'd probably want it on the Switch.
Yeah.
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 Being cozy in bed. In terms of pet bloopers, I ordered some shrimp to go in that
Oh
tank in
yeah,
my
that's
kitchen.
right.
And they were supposed to come yesterday, and the shipment has got delayed until apparently this Thursday. So hopefully these shrimp arrive alive.
Oh no.
We'll see.
Are they being delayed like in transit, or have they not
I
shipped
don't
yet?
know. I don't know.
Oh,
I thought it said that they had shipped, but now it seems uncertain. Hopefully they
okay.
haven't shipped.
Hopefully.
Yeah, because they supposed to like you're supposed to like overnight ship or 2-day ship aquatics, so
Yeah.
not anything longer than that, especially in the heat. But we'll see. Hopefully the shrimp get here. I got a new light for the fish tank in the kitchen,
Mm.
and it's so much better than the other light. The other light kind of like killed itself because it was one of those like mag lights where it's like got a
Mhm.
magnet on the inside and a magnet on the outside, and it like clamps to the glass. Because this is a lidless tank. It's my only lidless tank. It just has those Galaxy Rasboras in it right now because all my White Cloud minnows died. R.I.P.
Mm.
I don't know why. So that's cool. But the other ones seem fine. Um, but yeah, the magnets just like fell out, and so it's not functioning as it should. It's like they
Oh,
didn't glue the magnets in enough, so I got pissed off and just bought another light.
that's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
All right. Do you have any pet bloopers before we continue on?
No, because I wasn't home.
Fair enough.
And
Yeah.
as far as I know, everything's been cool. That they behaved for the sitter. I think my dog
Mm-hmm.
misses her.
Oh.
He seems a little depressed, but um, yeah, no. Apparently they behaved and they were good, and everybody's cool.
Of course, all the animals behaved when you weren't around.
Exactly. But that's. I mean, I'm so glad.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm so
yeah.
glad.
Yeah, they only get to stress you out.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right, well, let's get to our questions. Remember, folks, you can send in your audience hobby related questions to our Patreon, and it's totally free.
And shout out to Amy Bird, Katie's awesome mom, for being our very first paid Patreon.
Yes, thank you, Mama. You didn't have to, but you did, and that's very sweet.
Yes. We love Katie's mom.
Hmm.
Katie's mom has got it going on. Katie's mom. Okay. That might need to be cut out.
Yeah, that's probably not appropriate. All right, why don't you start us off with a question?
Okay. Um, describe your background with horses. When did the obsession start and how has it progressed? What draws you to horses?
Oh yeah, both of us are gonna answer this question. So,
Mm-hmm.
so I've loved horses since like the second I became conscious as a human. Pretty much been obsessed since then. I've read every single horse book in multiple libraries as a kid. Like I would literally go through the entire like horse section, and then when I finished it, I would like beg to like, can we go to this other library that I know exists? Um, it was, yeah, totally normal thing.
Yeah.
Collected Breyer horses. I worked at a stable for a while. And now I basically just follow a lot of horse trainers who specialize in liberty work and are positive, which is reward based only training work with
Mm-hmm.
horses. So I'm not exactly sure what draws me to them because it's been so long at this point. I just think they're
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah.
They communicate so effectively for an animal that can't speak, as you know, animals can't. And I've always been drawn to learning about animal behavior and communication. And I kind of think animals are more honest than people, which is part of what attracts me to them. Like, I really hate dishonest people and like feeling like people tell me one thing but they mean another, and that happens all the
Yeah.
time. So yeah, what about you?
But horses never mean something that they're not.
No,
They
they
they they
if
they
they're
indicate
feeling
what they
like shit,
mean.
they'll tell you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I second pretty much all of that. Um but if I had to pinpoint like personally the moment that like the true obsession started, I I had this book when I was really young and it was a very problematic book. Okay, it was like from the 70s. But it was about this real life girl that got a pony for Christmas. And how she trained it and did horse shows. I was so captivated by it. Like there were these pictures in it. Like there was pictures of it, and it was like retro. And I don't know. I literally, this is so embarrassing. I literally wore my hair like her for months because I wanted to be her so badly. I cannot believe I just admitted that on the internet. But yeah, so I think what draws me to horses so much and like what keeps me coming back is just how they make me feel. Um, I I do interact with horses on a pretty regular basis. I take pretty traditional lessons. And I just feel so much calmer and more at ease when I'm around horses. And that's even been backed by science in our extended show notes, which you can get on our free Patreon. I'll be putting in some stuff about like horses and PTSD. So I can personally attest that just being around a horse, not even riding it, like just standing next to it is so incredibly calming. Like there's just something kind of magical about them and it's hard to describe.
Yeah, and like maybe it has to do with how big they are. I don't know. Like your standard
Yeah.
horse. I mean, they're sorry, they're quacking huge. Um, yeah, I don't know. I totally
Yeah,
agree. There's and like not to be so uberly horse girl about it, but it is kind of magical. Yeah.
it is. They're just magical like I.
Hmm. So, how has money impacted your equestrian journey?
I think money is the biggest hurdle when it comes to this hobby personally. So there's a stereotype that only rich white people have horses, and it's kind of true. Like, it sucks that money prevents people, like especially disadvantaged people, from having the opportunity to interact with horses. And personally, the reason why it's an on again, off again hobby for me is because sometimes I just simply can't afford it. Like, and my lessons right now are super cheap because of where I live. But in order to be around horses, like, you have to take lessons, or you have to lease, or you have to work in a barn.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and two of those require money, and one of those requires time that I don't have. And, being able bodied, which I'm not. So, like, if you don't have the money up front to buy your own horse or whatever, like, you're constantly giving someone money just to spend time with horses. And I didn't write this down, but another option for this that I'm looking into currently, because I'm moving somewhere where lessons are much more, like twice the price. They're much more expensive. It's going to be really cost prohibitive for me to continue taking lessons. Is getting involved in volunteering with an equestrian facility that does therapy with horses, because they always need volunteers, and a lot of times they need someone to walk the horses, help the people groom them, because they're working with people with different levels of abilities, and so they might not be able to physically groom the horse, or they might just need some help grooming the horse, or they might need help getting on and off, whatever. So I'm looking into that because that might be a way for me to avoid putting myself into severe debt just to, keep hanging out with horses.
Yeah. Yeah, that's super. It's cool. And like, I hope that works out, honestly, because I bet that would make
Yeah.
it even more rewarding to be able to like have an outlet for your passion that's not putting you into debt, and also really improve someone else's like quality of life,
Yeah,
depending on what they need
exactly.
the therapy for.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so money has impacted my equestrian journey entirely. I'm not sure I'll ever be able to afford having horses like I want to.
Yeah.
Um, it's fine.
Yeah. Big
I can live
same.
vicariously through you. But so the one time I did have horse time was when I I was a teenager, and I just called one of the stables near me and asked them if they would be interested in like having me as a working student. So where I would do a certain amount of hours of farm chores for them in exchange for some sort of horsey lesson, whether it be a riding lesson or a training lesson. And I was way more interested in the training aspect. I'll get at that more into that later. But she was very reasonable about it. I think she was like, work 6 or 7 hours or something,
Mm-hmm.
um, of chores, which I liked doing anyway because the chores were just time around the horses. It's like,
Yeah,
yeah,
interacting with horses.
I'm scrubbing out this water tub, but I've got like 6 horses next to me that want to be petted. Like,
Yeah, or like curious about, yeah,
yeah,
what you're
they want
doing.
to see what you're up to, and I'll feed them, and then they're all happy to see me because I fed them and stuff like that. So there are definitely options to get some horse time that don't cost money, but you just got to find the right outlet and people that are willing to work with you on it,
Oh yeah,
and
yeah. I
and
mean, if
put some
you're,
time into it, that value makes you valuable to them too.
yeah, exactly. And I think that's a great gig for teenagers, especially because you have the
Mhm.
time. And if you're, able-bodied or close enough to able-bodied that you can do that kind of work, like that's a great option. Because like you said, like
Yeah.
the work itself is fun. And I did the same
Mhm.
thing when I was younger. I worked for lessons too, for
Mhm.
extra lessons, and
Mhm.
I enjoyed it.
Not that
Like,
I'm encouraging people to exploit teenagers, but this is one area where it's like, well, I'm okay being
yeah,
exploited.
yeah, and yeah, and I've definitely seen barns that were very exploitative. Is that a word?
Mhm.
Exploitative? Exploitive?
Yes.
You know what I'm
Exploitative.
saying.
Mhm.
Um, but like even the current barn that I'm at, it's really run by teenagers, because they have so many that are like working for lessons and stuff. But they're having a great time. They're
Yeah.
having the time of
You
their
think about
life.
all the worst things those teenagers could be doing. Like,
Exactly.
if
And
heaven
they're
forbid they just want to work 10 hours a week to hang out with a pony, you know?
yeah, exactly. And they're riding around in the golf cart with the, I think it's called a gator, I think.
Mhm.
They're
Mhm.
riding around in the gator with all the poop in the back, and they're like, jumping out and picking up poop, and it doesn't sound fun at all, but it totally is. I was one
Yeah,
of
and
those
those kids are
teenagers,
gonna
and it
go
was
on
such a
and
good
like know how
time.
to work. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So good for them.
Yeah. Okay, so that was a positive note. On a slightly negative
Mhm.
note, were you ever shamed or bullied for your interest in horses? And on a second note, how did gender play into that?
Oh, I was absolutely bullied for it. I see in your notes below this that you talk about pretending to be a horse at recess. I absolutely did that. Like
So
all the time.
embarrassing. I'm just outing out all my embarrassingness on
Ah,
this.
I don't care. People can know. So luckily, I was mostly the type of kid who didn't care about what other people did, and I just did what I wanted anyway. I think the gender aspect played into my feelings about it more as I got older.
Hmm.
I went through a phase where I really detested being seen as anything girly because I thought that meant weakness, which is not true. But
Yeah.
society has a way of teaching us that like girly things are weak, and that's stupid.
Yeah. That is
Um,
stupid.
it definitely played into me hiding my interest in horses as I got older. Like,
Hmm.
I wouldn't lie if someone asked me about it, but I wouldn't outwardly be like, I read 4 books about horses this week.
Yeah.
Something that,
Yeah.
I think at heart, I'm a good mix of feminine and masculine, and the way I feel like presenting changes regularly, and I just lean into that now. So some
Hmm.
days people get sundress picnic presenting Katie, and some days they get 12-year-old boy Pokemon trainer presenting Katie. And like in my mind, that's me as a woman, whether or not people like it. Like I'm
Yeah.
happy in my skin, and that honestly that has nothing to do with my gender identity. And for some people, it does, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna like horses. I'm gonna like bugs, snakes, cars, art, whatever the quack I want. And gendering interests is stupid.
Yeah.
And I went I went on a tangent there. What
Yeah.
about
No.
you?
Hard agree. Gendering interests is totally stupid. Um, I was bullied really hard for being a horse girl. And I mean, in some ways, it's like I don't. Bullying is not okay in any capacity, but I also kind of understand why because I did wear the same exact hairstyle for months, and like I said, I pretended to be a pony at recess. Um, but yeah, it sucked, and it kind of took the wind out of my sails. In a lot of ways. I think what finally helped me with this specific aspect of bullying was moving to a more rural area where being into horses and having horses was cool because again there's a stereotype of like being rich, so rural people are much more inclined to livestock, obviously for obvious reasons. So kids went to rodeos and wanted to be cowboys when they grew up, so like I wasn't as weird anymore. um so I definitely think there's like a regional thing with being bullied for being into horses, just
Mhm.
personally, because I moved from like a very urban area to where I was like really severely bullied to a more rural area where I was being bullied, but not as much for the horse girl stuff. Like it was
Yeah,
different
you're
stuff.
being bullied for other
I
things.
was being bullied for every other aspect about me, but the horse girl
Yeah,
stuff
they're
was
like
pretty normal at that point.
they're like, yeah,
But yeah,
a dime a
I
dozen of those around here.
yeah. So, um, yeah, I do think gender plays a role because like there is that horse girl stereotype that, you know, even adult men. I've seen like reels and stuff about it, like adult men making fun of it, and I mean I do too to an extent because I'm really just
Mhm.
making fun of myself for being a horse girl. And I want to point out that I'm using horse girl as a gender neutral term. Like horse girl is a state of mind. It's not. It's not like to me it's not gendered. Like it's a way of acting.
The stereotype came from a gendered assumption, but like
It's
the way that we use the term now is not gendered.
it's way above gender at this point.
Yeah.
It is just like the way that you act, and horse girls are they're bizarre, they're badass, they're
Yeah,
fearless, they're kind of
incredibly
gross.
passionate.
They're
Yeah, they're
yeah,
kind of
like kind of
disgusting.
like rolling around in horse poop, like just like there's it's yeah, it's above gender at this point for me, like the whole horse girl thing. And again, like I said, like I make fun of other horse girls because I'm making fun of myself. Really, there's a stereotype for a reason. We are kind of weird, but I love it.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm good
That's
with
why I'm
it.
not embarrassed to admit to the masses on the internet that listen to this show. All of our I think we've got like 12 Spotify subscribers now. Shout out to y'all. I'm not embarrassed saying like, yeah, I pretended to be a horse at recess cuz like Who
Well,
cares? That's kind of
one
funny in
one who
hindsight.
cares, but also I don't think anyone that knows me is going to be surprised by that
No.
fact. They're going to
No
be
one
like,
who
"Well,
knows you is
yeah,
going to be
of course
surprised.
Sid pretended to be a pony at recess." Like, duh,
Yeah.
you
Yeah, and
know.
it's like kids play pretend as a way to understand the things around them as they're like figuring out how reality is. Like,
Yeah.
of course, I play all
Yeah.
sorts of pretend games.
Yeah.
I also pretended to be a witch. You know,
I pretended to be
lots. I
a
got.
lot of
Oh, here's a
things.
fun story. Here's a little tangent. Uh, when I was 12, I went over to my best friend's house, and I had been reading the House of Night series, which is like about vampires that can be out in the daylight. It's a whole thing, and they have like candle ceremonies. It's like kind of based on witchy things where you like
Mhm.
honor the four directions with four candles or whatever. And I was just pretending to be one of the characters in this book. And my friend's mom came up to me at the end of that hangout and she's like, Katie, I love you dearly, but you cannot practice witchcraft in my household. And I was like, doesn't she know it's pretend?
Doesn't she
Like,
know it's pretend? It's just pretend.
it's
Like,
just pretend. I'm not her. I'm just lighting some candles and saying thank you to the directions. Like it's not. I'm not
yeah.
summoning demons in your household. Anyway,
That's really
back to our
funny.
horsey. Isn't that hilarious?
That is like so funny.
Parents
Thank
take
you.
silly things seriously sometimes.
Yeah.
So Sid, what do you look for in a barn or a stable?
Yeah. So the first thing I look for is 24/7 turnout. I do not want to interact with any barn that keeps their horses in stall for more than what's necessary. Like obviously medical procedures, really severe storms, in between lessons, just to keep them, you know, clean and ready. So they don't have to be caught again. I get that. But really, they should just be turned out with other horses 24/7. Also, do they look healthy? Do they look well fed? Um, and one thing that, I mean, this has to wait until usually the first lesson, but how easy is this horse to catch? All horses are different, but having a horse run away from me for any reason is a huge red flag for me. Like, yes, you should take a treat out there because, you know, make it beneficial for them to be caught.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, if a horse runs away from me, that's a huge red flag to me that like they really really don't want to be involved. They're scared, whatever. And that was the first thing I noticed at the barn that I'm currently at that I'm really sad to be leaving is those horses are so easy to catch. They
Mm-hmm.
just stand there. They're like, "Oh, you got a cookie for me? Awesome." Like, they're not afraid
Yeah.
to be caught. They're not afraid of their lessons. They're not running away from you. They might look a little annoyed because they were busy doing horsey things and now you're interrupting them. But it's not a negative
So
thing.
they also want their dang cookies, so they're gonna do it.
They're like, "Well, yeah, I'll let you put that halter on me for the cookie."
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, when I'm taking lessons though, I do understand that I'm very much like succumbing to a traditional method of riding where the horse is like the boss, whatever, but the
The
horse shouldn't
human's the
hate.
boss. Yeah.
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 Did I say the horse is the boss?
You said the horse is the boss.
The horse
Yeah.
should be the boss. I'm succumbing to the traditional method where the
Yes.
human is the boss. But
Mm-hmm.
the horse shouldn't hate lessons that much. They shouldn't hate it so much that they're running away rather than eating the cookie. They shouldn't be hating the lesson so much that they literally won't move. Like
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
so. Eventually I want to ride with a more like our positive approach, but I have to work with what I've got for now because I can't. Our positive approach isn't that popular, unfortunately, and
Yeah.
I can't afford my own horse.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
in order to stay around them, I have to kind of, you know, work with what I've got, like I said.
Yeah. So, someone who enjoys riding, what's your favorite part about it? Like, what do you like about riding?
This is going to sound so cliche, but honestly, it's connecting with the horse. Like I should put some like magical sounding sound effects in the background.
Horse girl.
Horse girl. Yeah,
You're
but
having your flicka moment.
yeah, exactly. I'm having my flicka moment every time. But no, for real, when you're riding a horse, you're not riding a bike. Like you have this illusion of control because you're holding reins or whatever, but it's actually a constant conversation between you and an 1,000-pound plus animal that has thoughts and opinions and plans and might be having a bad day or, whatever. And so you have to like find ways to compromise and ask for things respectfully, and take into account what the horse can handle and what you can handle and what they want and what you want. Um, and it just feels so human. Like I really just genuinely feel like humans are just meant to work with horses. We bred them to interact with us with this in this way. Like we co-evolved with them, and it just feels so right. And
Mm-hmm.
like people that are like anti horseback riding are gonna super come for me. Like there's no reason you should be on a horse. And I'm not even necessarily talking about riding when I talk about like it just feels right to work with horses and being around them. Like if you don't agree with riding and you don't want to ride, like this still applies for me
Yeah, I
personally.
mean, horses are domestic animals. They don't exist in their current state as wild things. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
well, I'll argue with the wild horse people. They're feral. They're not wild.
Yeah. Yeah.
Continue.
So that cooperation and that relationship is just so primal and so easy. Like it's easy to fall into step with a horse. Like walking a horse is so much easier than walking a dog in my opinion. Like it just feels so natural, and it just I always when I'm riding a horse, I feel like I'm being transported to a time and a place where my phone, social media, society, none of it exists. It's just me and this majestic creature figuring out how to move forward
Mm-hmm.
in a way that makes us both happy. And it's
Yeah, I mean
just so,
that promotes so much mindfulness to be that rooted in the present moment. You
yes.
have
And
to
you
be.
have to yeah, you have to be. It's unsafe not to be. Like again, this is an animal. This is not a bicycle.
Mm-hmm.
This is it's dangerous. I mean, I don't think it's that dangerous, but it is dangerous because that animal could do
It has
anything it
the
wants to
potential
do.
to be risky.
Yeah, it has
Yeah.
the potential to be dangerous because, it could, like I said, the horse could be having a bad day. But ultimately, they want to take care of you just as much as you want to take care of them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really a beautiful thing.
So sweet, Sid.
Yeah.
So, what accommodations do you make for yourself and with your trainer for riding while chronically ill?
Yeah, this is a really important point.
Mm-hmm.
So being chronically ill makes riding a lot harder. I'm going to admit that. But accommodations can be made. People are always surprised by this. But for example, my trainer personally always helps me get on and off my horse, because those are actually the two most dangerous moments in a lesson. Getting stuck in a stirrup and having your horse run away is the most dangerous thing that can happen. And that's more likely to happen when you're getting on and off the horse. So my joints really struggle with getting on and off, and so she helps me with that part. Um, I also always wear my smartwatch. I have an app that alerts me when my heart rate gets too high. So if I'm trotting, doing a posting trot or a rising trot where I'm moving up and down in the saddle or whatever, my
Yeah,
watch
which is
will.
cardio for people that don't ride. Yeah.
Yes, it is a lot of cardio.
Yeah.
My watch will tell me to calm the quack down, and I'll and I'll bring it down to a walk, and I'll just chill for a bit. And my trainer knows this, so like she knows if she tells me to trot and I trot for a little bit and then I bring it down to a walk, she knows, okay, Sid needs a break.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so she's not going to yell at me or anything. So just having that conversation with her of like, I have limitations on what I can do, and it's not that I'm not listening to you, it's I need a break right now.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, and also your trainer shouldn't yell at you anyway.
no, they shouldn't, but they do.
Oh yeah, yeah,
They will. But yeah, so I also have to accommodate for my heat intolerance. Dysautonomia typically causes you to be intolerant to heat. It can make it more likely for me to pass out. So I have an ice vest. Highly recommend if you're heat intolerant. It works great. So I will wear that if it's really hot out, just again, so I don't pass out. But there's more things that you can do to accommodate yourselves. There's equipment that you can use to accommodate yourself. I mean, you know, people that are paraplegic can ride horses with the
hmm
correct accommodations. And so horseback riding can actually be very accessible, believe it or not.
yeah, physically
Especially
accessible.
yeah, it can be because you You don't necessarily have to do anything crazy. You can just sit up there and have someone lead you if that's what makes it accessible to you, and you can still have that connection. And that's where like that horse therapy thing comes in. People that ride for horse therapy, a lot of the times that's what's happening. They are
Mhm.
being put into a saddle and somebody is leading the horse for them so that they don't have to worry about that part and they can just focus on their connection with the horse,
Mhm.
and what's going on with the horse, to make it accessible for them physically. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the point is it should be enjoyable. Like
Yeah. It should
you
be and for
yeah.
everyone involved, not just
Yes, it should
you.
be enjoyable for everyone involved.
It should be enjoyable for everyone involved, including the horse, which I I'm a treat dispenser.
Yeah.
Like when I go out to catch a horse, I take treats out with me. They get one, like when I get to them and I start putting the halter on, and then once I finish putting the halter on, they get another one. And then we get back to the barn and I groom them. And horses typically like grooming because it feels nice.
Mhm.
So that's
Mhm.
kind of a reward in and of itself most of the time. Um, it just depends on the horse. But and then once I get them saddled and put on their girth, which is like the part that goes around their stomach that holds the saddle on. It's essentially like putting on a bra,
Mhm.
for those that wear bras. Nobody wants to wear that thing, including the horse. So I give them a treat after I put on their bra. Because I know they don't want to wear it. And I'm like, here, I'm really
Yeah.
sorry. Like, take this treat and
Mhm.
then we get off after the end of the lesson they get a treat, and then when I turn them out they get a treat. So whatever, I just dispense treats as much as possible.
Yeah, I mean, you're making your presence rewarding for them.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
Yeah, it should be that way. All right.
Yeah, and horses are built to eat all day long, so it's fine for them to
They
eat all
really
day
are,
long.
built to eat. Like it makes
They're
me so.
supposed to digest that way. Like,
Yeah, they're never supposed to have an empty stomach. That can
no.
cause ulcers.
Mhm.
um and that's another thing, is like at this barn, that another thing you can see, do the horses always have access to something to eat, even if they're being stabled temporarily because they're in
Mhm.
between lessons? They should have hay in there.
Mhm.
They should never not have access to food. They're supposed to always be
Yeah,
grazing or
even if your
something.
horse is on a diet, like they still need access to food. That's where things like grazing muzzles come in, where you put them on a dry lot with like access to hay and hay nets or something. So they're still getting
Hmm.
access to it, just at a restricted pace.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. It's kind of like
yeah,
a slow feeder for dogs. Essentially, it's
yeah,
like they still need
hmm
constantly intake, but
yeah,
they're a little too good at their intake, and so they need to be slowed down a little bit.
yeah. Or they just need lower calorie options, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
if you go to a barn and they ever have time where they don't have access to forage, that's a red flag.
Oh yeah, yeah, for
Hmm.
sure. Okay, your turn to be in the hot seat.
All right.
Do you ever get horse FOMO?
Yeah, I get FOMO all the time.
I'm sorry.
I don't really get FOMO with you because you've been good enough to like up. You give me like stable updates. You're like, here's look at Peppy today, that kind of thing. So like,
Yeah,
I don't get FOMO because I'm very consciously living vicariously through you, and you know that.
yeah. And
But
I
yeah,
will
I've
get you
spent.
on a horse soon.
I know. Yeah, we just
It's
need to
gonna
figure it
happen.
out with the schedule. It'll probably be
Yeah.
easier in the fall or the winter. At some point when I'm not. It's easier when I'm not working a million hours.
Oh yeah.
Um, So I've spent literal decades learning about horses, and I often get self-conscious that people don't take my opinion seriously because I don't have one myself. But that's silly because I have opinions about space exploration, and that's something I've never done. Um, like I've worked at a stable and spent enough time around horses and all that time learning about them to know how much I'm missing out on, which I think is a big contributor to the FOMO. Uh,
Yeah.
but whatever, it's my life.
So if you were able to financially, time wise, to get horses or join a stable, what horse related activities would you personally pursue?
Yeah, so like I said, I'm not super motivated by riding. I think I'd be
Mm-hmm.
more into trick training at Liberty or just
Mm-hmm.
doing different behaviors at Liberty. I'm motivated primarily by communicating effectively with animals, and that's the same reason I have dogs. Like I have dogs that communicate very well with me. Like
Mm-hmm.
anyone who knows my border collies are like, yeah, those dogs are like sentient.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, I don't know.
Secret kind of freaks me out sometimes.
Yeah, Secret's a little
He's a
he's a
little
little intense
creepy.
sometimes. Sometimes I'm like, I literally asked him yesterday. I'm like, son, do you ever blink?
He
But
doesn't. Maybe
He
that's what it
does.
is. He reminds me of an animatron. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. So in an ideal world, I probably wouldn't. I wouldn't really. I wouldn't prefer to do the lesson route. Like in an
Mm-hmm.
ideal world, I'd adopt a couple of BLM Mustangs or some sort of rescue horses that like just
Mm-hmm.
need a home and need a lot of positive I mean every horse needs positive reinforcement, but I would basically want some dumpster horses. I don't
Yeah.
need anything fancy.
Yeah.
I just want to hang out with them and feed them treats and teach them tricks.
Yeah.
And one thing I like about Mustangs is that they're usually built pretty well and they're smaller.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I don't support feral horses being out on the landscape because they um, impact ecosystem function out west. Like especially like I lived in Nevada for a year and there's so many horses on the landscape and there's not enough forage for them to eat. So a lot of them starve unless they get supplemental feeding from the BLM.
Yeah.
Um
There's
and
there's a reason that their ancestor went extinct on the
mm,
plains. Um,
mm.
Unfortunately, like it just that ecosystem doesn't support them, like you said.
No, and there's
So.
too much human dominated impact
Mm-hmm.
on the landscape for it to make sense. Especially like people would hit Mustangs all the time on the roads in Reno.
Oh
And
my gosh.
that kills people. Like it doesn't just kill horses, it kills people too. Like
Yeah, that's
you
so dangerous.
I think I think people that support wild horses are doing it with good intentions, but are often misguided on like the realities of what their
Mm-hmm.
lives look like. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, I'd like Mustangs tend to be smaller, which I like. If I didn't get some Mustangs, I already talked about this. I'd get some rescue ponies that hated kids or something. Give me your problematic horses.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of like adoption places that are like trying to get horses out to people, like just companion horses,
Yeah.
because some horses can't be ridden or don't want to be ridden. And
Yeah, and
um
that's a route I might take too. Like some people don't want horses that they can't ride, so I'd probably
mhm,
want to adopt unrideable horses or
yeah,
kind of thing.
a lot of horse
Like
people
there's
call
like
those lawn ornaments.
lawn ornaments, yeah,
Yeah.
freeloaders. Um
Affectionate.
yeah, I don't know. Like there's all these conditions like kissing spine and
Hmm.
Cushing's disease affects a horse's ability to be ridden. A lot of time they can founder, which is where their feet become really sensitive and
Hmm.
um those types of horses can't be ridden. And but they deserve to have quality lives too. Like I hate to think that our value of these animals ends at their usefulness to us, you know.
Yeah, and also the fact that like people don't think that they're useful if they can't be ridden. Like
Yeah,
they've
that's
clearly
absurd.
never formed like a real connection with a horse if they think that that's the only quote unquote use for a horse is to
Mm.
be ridden. Like give me a like if I had the time and the the access, I would just take a horse on a walk.
Yeah.
Just, halter in hand, or like, or even not, because they're herd animals. So they stay next to you.
Yeah.
Like they're,
Yeah, I think a lot of this gets conflated with like horse businesses where like
mm-hmm,
someone's business is their lesson horses or is their sport training of horses, is their horse breeding and like anything that's more of an expense with less of a profit is hindering the business. Well, I think people just could be more creative about what they offer for their horses. Like if something happens where the horse can't be ridden for whatever sport,
mm-hmm.
you could open a fucking petting zoo and charge
Oh
admission.
yeah.
Like I
Oh
don't know.
yeah.
There are all sorts of ways to get creative with it that I think people just don't they sleep on it.
Yeah. Or even, I mean, a lot of equine therapy, most of it isn't riding. Most of
Hmm.
it is just interacting with the horse, and sometimes it's as simple as, there's one that I read about where the person stands in the center of the ring, and the object is to lower your heart rate and slow your breathing to a point where the horse is naturally drawn to come closer to you. So the horse is in the ring, the person's in the center. And, horses want to be near something they feel is safe. They're herd animals, so they don't want to be alone. But if you're giving off, vibes, or, if you're in a state that doesn't feel safe to them, they're going to stay away from you. So
Hmm.
just the act of being mindful of what's going on in your body that they can feel to get them to naturally come to you, that's a therapeutic practice. You don't even
Yeah,
have to
it's
touch the horse.
yeah. No.
You know, like
Yeah.
if you're, and people do that when they're afraid of horses because they're like, I don't want to touch it. You don't have to touch it. Just
Mhm.
stand here and breathe until the horse, and they won't touch, most horses won't touch you either. They just want to stand next to you.
Mhm.
They don't want to be
That's so
rude.
cool.
Yeah, it's really cool.
We should include that in the show notes.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure.
Let me write down horse centric therapy, anxiety, mindfulness. That's not a sentence, but it
That's
is a
not a
note.
sentence. It is a note. It is a note.
A note. All right.
Okay, so how
Next
do you
question.
feel about the AFAB neurodivergent to Horsegirl pipeline?
Ooh, that's a doozy.
Yeah.
So AFAB. So for those who don't know, that's assigned female at birth, neurodivergent. We've talked about before. I think it's an interesting pattern that girls are sort of expected to like horses as youths, but that interest feels like it's supposed to die at some point in adulthood.
Yeah, that is
Like
weird.
you know, like I
Yeah.
feel like I very intentionally started keeping my horse interest more internal as I got older, even though it did not wane. I was
Mm-mm.
still interested, but I was receiving feedback that this obsession was somehow less acceptable socially as I got older.
Mm-hmm.
So I adjusted accordingly, right? But I do think it's weird that hobbies and sports keep popping up as gendered when how you communicate with an animal shouldn't be gendered. Like, that's not
No.
actually how that works.
Mm-mm.
Um, I think the neurodivergent pattern makes more sense to me because neurodivergent people tend to be drawn to animals. This is well documented.
Yeah.
And learning how other animals communicate can help you learn how to communicate better with people. A lot of neurodivergent people struggle to communicate with their peers for whatever reason. So it
Yeah.
makes perfect sense to me that the people who struggle with communication would want to learn from all of their available sources.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
I also found some papers that I'll link on the show notes about people with autism spectrum disorder self-report identifying more with animals than other humans. So there's a paper about that.
Yeah. I relate to that.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, right. There are many equestrian therapy programs specifically for autistic children, and there's some reviews about how those long-term therapeutic horseback riding like affects people's ability to function.
Wow. That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. So I feel like neurodivergent people are drawn to animals because, again, like, with that said, like, it sometimes it feels more natural than humans because, and I'm basing this off of what I've been told, but also my own experiences. And like, you were talking about how horses they're honest. Animals are honest, and when you really understand how an animal communicates, because obviously they can't talk, they are extremely direct in their communication. And for someone who's autistic, that makes sense. That makes
Yes.
sense. That's something that I can get behind, is very direct communication. Like, they are, like, once you figure out how they do it, they are telling you exactly how it is. They don't beat around the bush. They don't mask. They don't like, they don't use metaphors. They're
Yeah, I mean, if they mask, it's like with horses, it would be like they might hide pain symptoms because they're a prey animal. That'd be
oh
kind of
yeah,
a way
that
of
would be kind
masking.
of
But I know what you
yeah.
mean. Yeah.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
they're not
Mm.
they're not, they're going to tell you how it is. You just have
Yes.
to figure out how they do that. Um but part of the reason I think I've always had pets was just because it felt like they were the only ones that understood me and I understood them. So, like, there was this connection there that I could get with them very easily that I couldn't get with other people. And I think horses are such a great example of this. Like I said, it's just so natural and effortless for humans to communicate with horses. And I feel like for some neurodivergent people, that might be the first time they've ever experienced effortless communication. For me, it
Yeah.
was. And then I think that's what so, like, felt so magical to me, is like this, this, my whole life is so full of effort all the time, maximum effort all the time. And then
Mm.
being around a horse is so effortless. And, of course they're going to be drawn to that. They want, and want to hold on to that effortless communication and feeling of
Yeah.
ease. Yeah.
I totally feel you on that. And I think that's part of why I get so frustrated when I watch horse trainers that are doing so much of the wrong thing. Like they introduce fear and pressure in all sorts of ways that are just absolutely unnecessary. It's like a
Yeah.
power control trip.
Yeah.
And it's like none of that is necessary at all.
No.
Not for you.
And you get so much better results. Like significantly better results from like actually just communicating with the horse and with our pause is
Yeah,
it's
and
annoying.
not treating the horse like they think like a person, like understanding that they process things differently.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, all this anthropomorphizing horses as like being lazy um or vindictive or something. Like that's not
Yeah.
helpful for either the person involved with the horse or the horse.
Yeah. Yeah, I always find it funny when people are like, "Oh, like horses, you know, my horse is being lazy." Horses
Yeah.
are lazy. That's just kind
Yeah,
of their
like what?
natural state.
I don't want to work either. Like,
No, no, I don't want to work. Like neither do they. But it's like, yes, a horse needs the space and will run around, you know, and do stuff. But
mhm.
90% of the time, they're just standing in a field with other
Yeah,
horses
and they're eating and hanging
and
out.
they're eating and
Yeah.
hanging out. That's their whole life.
Like
Is
maybe we shouldn't get super like we shouldn't take it so personally when a horse doesn't want to trot around a ring for 45 minutes.
yeah,
Heaven
exactly.
forbid. Heaven
And I'm
forbid they're
guilty of
bored.
that.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
guilty of that. Like I
Yeah.
take it so personally when I'm like because you know, I'm being asked by a trainer to do a thing and then
Yes.
I'm asking the horse says I don't want to do that.
Hmm.
And I'm taking it like, "Oh, I'm a bad rider." No. They just don't want to, you know? And then and so like and me being in a very traditional setting, you
Hmm.
know, I might be getting yelled at by my trainer and I just have to kind of let that roll off my back because my personal opinion is if my horse really 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 doesn't want to do this, neither do I.
Yeah.
I don't want
Yeah,
to either.
that's how I approach dog training too. Like I really enforce safety behaviors obviously.
Mhm.
But like trick training, like I've taught Veery so many more tricks in Secret because Secret doesn't actually care that much about trick training. It's like, well, if
Mm.
you don't care that much, I don't really care that much.
Yeah. Yeah. Boba's
Like,
like Boba doesn't care about tricks. He wants he's just food motivated and he's like I will
yeah.
do any literally anything you ask me to do if you give me that treat.
Hmm.
Um so, you
Yeah,
know.
and Secret's like that for Frisbee, but it's like, okay, I could make it more enriching by working with him on a treat and reward him with the Frisbee, or I could just play Frisbee with him and enjoy my day because he
Yeah.
enjoys it
Yeah.
regardless of whether there's another step in the
Yeah.
process or not. Hmm.
Yeah, the reason I teach Boba tricks and it's not because like he enjoys I can tell that he enjoys being mentally stimulated, like he likes
Hmm.
puzzles and that sort of thing.
Yeah,
And so
it's
I
good
give
for
him
his
lots of
brain.
puzzles.
Yes.
But that's a way that I can intellectually stimulate him while also interacting with him is like the trick training thing.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I've even I've even lied during lessons and been like, "Oh, I need a break," when my horse didn't want to do more because you know, if
That's
I say I
incredible.
need a break, then it's okay. But if the horse is saying they need a break, it's not okay. And I don't like that. So if my horse is
Yeah.
saying like I don't want to do that and they're really being like I don't want to do that, I'll just be like I need a break and I'll just walk around. Because
Yeah, I think the
I'm
world
not
would be
there.
better with more horse people like that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not there to be an asshole to this horse. I'm there for a genuine connection. And
Hmm.
if I'm being an asshole to this horse, I'm not getting a connection. You
Yeah, no,
know,
they're not
like
going to want to hang out with you if you're being an asshole to them.
yeah, and that
Imagine that.
defeats the purpose. That defeats the
Yeah.
purpose of why I'm doing it in the first place. You know, and I'm just going to leave my lesson feeling upset.
Yeah, you're not chasing achievements. You're chasing having a good time. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm chasing vibes and nothing else.
Yes.
I'm here for
As you
vibes.
should. Well, this was a lovely conversation, Sid, and
It
we have to look at the
was.
time.
I can't. I have time blindness.
Don't we all?
That wraps up this week's episode, which was sponsored by being bullied as children for having perfectly normal interests. Please join us next week as we explore the terrifying subject money and hobbies with our very first special guest who made their hobby their career. Before you log off, be sure to hit those follow and or subscribe buttons, and if you're feeling extra nice, consider leaving us a review. We want those 5-star reviews like we want our rich bitch horse money, and reviews
Oh
help
yeah.
other and reviews help other listeners find our show. So tell us what you think. See you next
See you next time.
time. Go get a
Go get a
hobby.
hobby.
Woot, woot, woot.
Yeah, another
Sorry,
one
you
down.
you got me with the
Yeah,
rich bitch horse money. That cracked me up.
yeah,
That was funny.
good. I love thinking about the sign offs. Like, what am I gonna put in the sign off for Sid to read?
I get excited to read it. I'm like, oh my
Oh,
god, what did she
good.
come up with this time? I'm like, this
Yeah.
is great. This is great. Okay, I'm gonna turn off the recording now.
Yeah, I turned mine off.